Donald Trump did say that he's going to bring out voters who have never voted, and he was right, except they voted against him. Yeah, there was 60,000 more voters in Iowa on GOP caucus last night than the previous record high, and there was more evangelical voters than ever, which helped Cruz defeat Donald Trump. Everyone thought the higher turnout would help Trump, but Eric, is Trump rallying more anti-Trump voters right now than his own supporters?
I'm not really sure how Trump's going to fare, because I want to see at least one or two more primaries to make that decision. Iowa is a tricky one. They voted the wrong Republican, 2 years in a row now, or how long has it been?
Well, this would make it number 3.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's number 3. Because as sad as it is, okay, the current state of American politics, when you're thinking that Donald Trump will be a better candidate than Ted Cruz, and both are equally batshit crazy, you know you're in a pretty bad position if one of those people gets elected. I'm terrified for you guys. I'm glad I'm up again. I don't have to use the argument that I'm going to run to Canada because I'm already here.
Yeah, thanks for the Canadian.
Yeah, get some rooms ready, buddy.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I don't want you. Get out, you immigrants.
Well, voter turnout aside, Josh, isn't the biggest problem right now the inexperience inside the Trump campaign? I mean, it's nice that he's doing well in the polls, but his ground game last night in Iowa was crap. They don't do any internal polling, and there was a report that he was mocking the other candidates for doing their own internal polling, saying, why do it? The TV guys will do it for free. Well, this is why.
Yes.
You got the Cruz campaign, which is just obsessed with analytics. You got Rubio's campaign, which is stacked with these experienced establishment guys. Can Trump really overcome that kind of, what it really takes to build a campaign?
I mean, I think that sort of what happened with Trump, because again, when we last spoke on this podcast, I was 100% certain Trump was not just going to win in Iowa, but he was going to level, just kill in Iowa.
Straight polls heading into the caucus.
Yeah, and I think that shows sort of, again, Eric's absolutely right. Iowa is weird and crazy, and so, a lot of people probably felt a little weirder about voting for Trump in front of their neighbors than they would have, say, in a voting booth. I think New Hampshire will also be a very significant test for him. That said, I do think it's encouraging. I think it's encouraging that even though, Ted Cruz is at his heart almost as bad as Donald Trump, or just as bad, depending on your point of view. But he hides it better, you know what I mean? So, but I still think that it shows that that the voters themselves were maybe not feeling as caught up in the Donald Trump maelstrom as, those of us who write about politics every day and think about it more than people should. So I'm hoping that that's just what it was. We couldn't, he was just like this beautiful unicorn who came into the middle of, some very public place and just started taking a dump for 8 straight months, and we couldn't stop watching. We couldn't stop it, and we couldn't stop watching it. But, when it came time for whatever was supposed to happen in the square to start, they cleaned up the crap and kind of did what they were supposed to do. I also think that the Rubio stuff is impressive because Rubio, he overperformed, and that's because, a lot of the other candidates either weren't, the people were just changing their mind because it was obvious they weren't going to win. Ben Carson all but suspended his campaign by going to Florida today to get a fresh set of clothing, as if they did. Yeah, I mean, they don't have stores. They don't have his size in stores in New Hampshire, I guess. But I think that it was interesting to say that the Republicans, this Trump dominance was not as big as we thought. Because a lot of the evangelical support, they jumped to Rubio, not a lot, but a significant amount, bolstered Rubio's numbers too in not wanting to vote for Trump. I mean, 2 Corinthians might be the most important fucking thing he said in the entire campaign because it showed them they're like, huh?
And the collection, the communion where you.
Oh God, I love that story. That makes me so happy. I can't even tell you.
Although, I did like Ann Coulter, and I hate to say that, but her comment about Rubio winning the participation award was pretty funny.
Yeah. I mean, look, she knows what she's doing.
Oh, I hate Ann Coulter, but I thought
but yeah, I do.
Was kind of funny.
I think that Trump in New Hampshire is really, really more important. If he kills it in New Hampshire, then we know when people go into a voting booth and are alone with their thoughts, they're thinking Trump. If if it's like another Cruz victory or another sort of three-way split, then it shows that the Republicans really are
Going
torn
crazy.
about where they want to go. And that while Trump has a certain appeal, even Republicans who have crazy ideas themselves know that that's a bad idea. So I don't know. I'm looking at it optimistically because, I have to live in the world either way.
Well, we've been consistently wrong on Trump. I mean, we have, the rumors of his death have been greatly exaggerated by us again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to go into the fray one more time.
Once more into the breach.
Since nobody but us keeps track of how wrong we are from week to week. But I mean, I think we're seeing the beginning of the end of the amusing Trump show. There's a point where even psychotic Republican voters start to think about the reality of electability, the reality of this guy out there representing us on a world stage, things like that. Trump has ran a campaign where he just basically says anything he wants, and he gets media coverage for that. He skipped the last debate, and he held his own weird little ceremony thing there. Nobody walked away from that impressed by him. I don't think that helped him at all. How much it hurt him is arguable, but certainly I don't think it helped him. Going up there to New Hampshire where you've got a bunch of people who are, this is not their first rodeo. And Trump just going up there and bullshitting around in the snow is not going to impress anybody.
I don't know. I mean, it's been very they're impressed in the polls. I mean, he's leading in the polls by way bigger margins than he ever led in Iowa.
Yeah.
And I mean, we talked about on the Democratic side, it's a very white state. There's, even at its peak, the turnout is like 20%. Eric, isn't this more of an anomaly in Iowa? And now 65% evangelical vote is like, that's Bible Belt numbers. Is it, when we talk about the rest of the country, New Hampshire, some of the big states like New York, California, it's really not going to be that big a deal.
No, I don't think so. And I'm driving the point home that the Republicans have been wrong about Iowa for a long time. So I think we'll see Trump kind of come back to the spotlight, but maybe he'll come back a little more humble now. I don't know. I say that with huge, exactly.
At the same time, Josh, here we saw the non-Trump voters kind of rally around Cruz and a bit about Rubio. I don't think they're going to do that around Cruz. Do you think Rubio would be the guy that can come out and really start surprising? He's your guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I do think that I pegged Rubio first as being like the smart choice for Republicans. So, already that had a lot against him. But I do think that especially, when it gets down to these states that aren't Iowa, when it gets to like South Carolina and even your blue states like California, New York, which don't matter in the general, but carry a lot of weight in the primary process. So I feel like Rubio or whoever, if Rubio slips up, whoever the not crazy choice is, relative to, Republican definitions of it.
It's not going to be Kasich.
Who is there? Kasich. Bush has a surprising rally, which, I mean, even McCain's comeback wasn't, he came back from the dead and he was not doing as poorly as Jeb Bush. So it has to be Rubio. But, I'm hedging my bets because, 2 weeks ago you were clouding me. You're like, Rubio's a buster. But I do think, I do think that he has really been drowned out because the adult voice in the room, I mean, if you look back to 2012, we paid attention to Herman Cain, Newt Gingrich, Michelle Bachmann, Santorum, all these other assholes. And then, by about Super Tuesday, we were like, oh yeah, Mitt Romney, he's the guy that won't kill us if he's elected. So I think that's probably that might be what happens when it comes to what happens with Rubio. But again, Trump is just, if he dominates New Hampshire and is able to get back that, the spotlight, because when he's in the spotlight, I don't think you can beat him. I think it's only when people aren't looking at him that in the voting booths and the caucus rooms that you can break through to actual thinking about who you want to run your government.
And I think Trump's going to start spending money now. I mean, before he was kind of running, he was spending money, but not as much as he could be. And I think now you're going to see it's coming all out. And that's where Cruz did well too. He started running a couple of attack ads right around the caucus, and the one about Trump calling Iowans stupid and celebrating abortion, right? Most sensible people can see through that, but the average voter that doesn't really care and believes everything they see on TV, they're going into the voting booth with that in mind. So you'll see some smear campaigns from Trump against the other candidates, for sure.
Marco Rubio certainly outperformed expectations the most. He finishes a point behind Trump. Peter, do you think that's because the closer the...
And I think that's what's important coming out of Iowa. I don't mean to interrupt you, Igor, but I'm just saying I think that is what's the most important, because as we mentioned before, it's Iowa is useless except for the fact that it creates the narrative going forward. And so I think of all of them, Rubio's coming out of this with a bigger bump, and people are looking more at him, and Trump has to get that spotlight back or he might be finished.
No, what was interesting was, the polls were right. Rubio wasn't getting a lot of support, and the exit poll shows that most of the people that voted for him actually came around in the days leading up to the caucus. So, Peter, do you think that as the voting grows nearer, people get a little more pragmatic about who they want to support?
I think there's something to that. Trump is great entertainment value, and people in polls are going to be very enthusiastic about the last shiny object that was held in front of them. And so that accounts for it. The other thing, let's not forget, Rubio did a really good job in the last Republican debate. With Trump off the stage, not sort of sucking all the air out of the room, Rubio had a chance to talk a little bit, to make a few points in a semi-rational manner that he couldn't do when Trump was up there. And I think it'd be very surprising if Trump skipped any more debates going forward, let's put it that way. But, Rubio may now feel a bit more empowered. He did something that worked in that last debate. Now he's got something that he can try again and see where it takes him. I don't know how Cruz is going to play up in New Hampshire. He's got that sort of folksy thing that he does, and
he has been
dragging
second pretty consistently though behind Trump.
Yeah. But he drags a lot of his sort of Tea Party-ish baggage up there with him. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But Rubio becomes the safe choice, the conservative choice, not conservative politically, but conservative in terms of how far are you willing to step out there on the Republican side. And that's, as Josh was saying, that's what happened with Mitt Romney. These things sort of have a tendency to settle themselves out. It'd be surprising if it settled out this soon as New Hampshire. But again, this race so far has been remarkably untypical and in many ways unpredictable. So, the weeding out process may happen a lot faster than we expected or in previous races.